Hi, it's David Cowan. I'm back again with a sixth installment of our Out of the Vault series. And today we're going to combine two of the cases. The first one holds 3 stock certificates, 1 bond certificate, and a stock ticker. The second case I'll get to in a moment. And these certificates were evidence of ownership. They were issued by companies, and they have many intricate patterns or vignettes on them to make them very beautiful and often collectible. The museum has a collection of thousands of these different types of share certificates issued by different companies. It's a great way to teach because we can talk about what an equity or a bond is, but a lot of people don't really get it. But when you show them these share certificates, it does make sense. Many companies don't issue these anymore. They're all held electronically or in custody, which is too bad. And in fact, when we show them around the museum, young people have never even seen one of these before. The certificates we're going to show you today were chosen because they feature pretty famous names on them. And the first one is a Standard Oil certificate, share number 19, issued to William Rockefeller. He was the brother of John D. Rockefeller, who signed this as president, Henry Flagler as secretary. This certificate is very early in Standard's history. Rockefeller, of course, was the richest man of his day. There are studies out there that say, on a relative basis today or in modern history, he would be the richest individual. The Supreme Court ruled in 1911 that the company had to be dismantled for violating antitrust laws, so it was broken up. And for instance, of the 34 companies that came out of it, Standard of New Jersey became Esso, which became Exxon. Standard of New York became Mobil. And so here we fast forward, we're some 110 years later, and guess what? 2 of them at least are back together because Exxon Mobil merged in 1999. It reminds me of the quote, "Well, history doesn't repeat itself, it certainly does rhyme." The second certificate, issued in 1902, is not so much about the company that issued it, the Rock Island Pacific Railway, which was a large Chicago-based line, but rather for the individual whose name is on it. It's none other than Hedy Greene. She was born in 1834 to a wealthy family and turned her inheritance into an immense fortune, mostly by investing in post-Civil War railroad stocks. She was the richest woman during the Gilded Age, and she managed her own affairs, which was rare for a woman at that time. She was also known as a legendary miser, never turning on the heat, using the hot water. She wore old black dresses and ate very modestly. The third certificate's from 1908 to the Ford Motor Company of Canada. Now, this was a separate company than Ford Motor here in the United States, but Henry Ford himself did own 13% of the company. And you can see here that he did sign on the bottom line. And what I like about this is the entrepreneurs of their day, they actually had to sign on these equity and bond certificates their names. And today we have something a little similar. CEOs, CFOs have to sign something called the Sarbanes-Oxley law, which then says that their financials are correct. But it's a different world and a different age when you actually signed your own share certificates. Our last certificate is a bond certificate, and it harkens back to the first billion-dollar company in the United States history. It was U.S. Steel, and J.P. Morgan was amassing all the steel companies. And he went to Andrew Carnegie and said he wanted to buy his company from him. How much would it cost? The price tag, $480 million, of which $226 million would go to Carnegie himself. Now, Carnegie is an incredible rags to riches immigrant story. In his book, The Gospel of Wealth, he said, "The man who dies thus rich dies disgraced." And so Carnegie gave away a lot of his amazing fortune. He became the world's greatest philanthropist at that time. His name, of course, adorning to this day many institutions and buildings. Now, this certificate is a 5%, $100,000 bond for 50 years, and it's backed by gold. But as you can see, it was retired within a dozen years. The museum a few years ago had an exhibit about Carnegie, and you can go to our website and take a look and learn more about this man. The last item in this case is one of the legendary stock tickers. This particular one was in use from 1889 to 1910. And it was a major breakthrough. Now prices could be sent across telegraph lines and sent to these machines, which would then push out a thin piece of paper that could bring the information now much quicker than previous methods, whether it used to be the mail or maybe a messenger. Some people even used flag signals and sometimes even carrier pigeons. Now, many people think Thomas Edison invented the stock ticker. No, that honor goes to Edward Callahan, who invented it in 1867. However, Edison did make major improvements with his universal stock ticker in 1871. It's got its name, not surprisingly, from the sound that the machine made, the ticking. Thousands were made and led to the start of the first ticker tape parade. That happened in 1886 to celebrate the Statue of Liberty. The museum has several old tickers in its collection. We've lent them out to TV shows like Boardwalk Empire that are trying to make their sets realistic. There's an old adage on Wall Street, which is true to today: don't fight the tape. Of course, that tape is now all electronic. The final object takes up an entire case all by itself because of its size. It's a 100-year-old cash register. This particular one was created by NCR, National Cash Register. And they were the company that created the first ever mechanical cash registers. Now, they are large and ornate and tracked daily transactions, which help to prevent employee theft. Being so large and heavy, they also prevented others from just taking off with your cash box. Now, we have several of these beautiful registers in our collection. They always bring the wow factor from a bygone era. I'll be back again next week. See you soon.